VikesNow, I am Dustin Baker, and we are not far away from the NFL draft. 6 days, in fact, by the time most of you are watching this, about 5 days. And we are back now with a seasoned guest, Thor Nystrom. Thor, it sounds like you are a busy man. Thanks for stopping by. How are you?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I turned in my 500 deep player big board yesterday with 500 comps, which to me every year, my 5th annual one, it's the culmination of the end of my draft work. With the submission of that, all my stuff is in, the position stuff before that with the write-ups and everything. So I pushed the boulder over the hill. Now it's just yapping about guys I've done work on. So now is the fun stuff. I'm feeling good.
Well, we are grateful to have you yap here and talk about these Vikings. When you were last on, I think it was about 2 weeks ago now, I left a little bit of a teaser. And I think, I referenced that in our comments when you're on the show, there's usually some individual who says, well, this is the guy that really liked Malik Willis. And therefore, I don't know if he's right about J.J. McCarthy. So I want to give you a platform to respond as to how you'll be right about McCarthy this time and aren't quite right yet about Malik Willis from 2022.
Well, there's a couple different ways to respond to that. The first of all, you 500 player big board, you're making 500 predictions on unknowable outcomes in advance. So, am I saying a million% that JJ McCarthy is this? I can't. Any player, there is no sure thing in the NFL draft. It is just my opinion of their evaluation after having done the work. I think people trust me because they know, as far as that goes, because they know that I've done the work, whether that's because I cover college football during the other part of the year, I have the exposure to the guys. And then during the spring, I do, the cut-ups and the film and different stuff like that. I have exposure on the guys, but it's just my opinion. I've had misses. I've had hits. I've had misses. Malik was one of the bigger misses for sure. But yeah, and I know some people will toss that out to try to be like, don't listen to this guy. But if you want to look at, certainly you could do that a one-off for anyone. And nobody hates to toot their own horn more than this guy. Arif Hassan just put up, he aggregates the big boards every year, and then he puts out the consensus big board every year. And because of that, he has a database with all the big boards. And so recently he quantified it by judging all the big boards going back years and years and years over a 5-year data set. The top individual, most accurate guy in terms of predicting the top 100 guys on their big board in terms of NFL success over 5-year period, that was his data set. You're talking to him. So like you tell that guy in the comments, you can't get 500 right every single time. And this year, the 1, 2, 3 through 500, it's not going to end that way in 10 years. It's not, I'm not all 500. It's not their quality. It's not exactly going to be the 500. It's not exactly going to end out that way. But, it's just my take. And it's a guy that did the work. I'm not copying other people, which you can tell if you look at my rankings. They greatly deviate from other people, which I'm fine doing. Because again, it's just my opinion. It's also why I'm fine going out there for instance, with JJ McCarthy. Why early on in late January, right when he declared, I was going nuts about him, but then I went on that rant that got the attention in I think it was early February or late January, where that was when he was viewed as a late 2nd round pick. And I said, no, he is a top 10 overall prospect in this class. Why am I confident? And because it's my opinion. I seen it. I got the exposure on him. That's why I feel confident in expressing my opinion. It's just my opinion on again, this thing where you're talking about something, a projection of this thing going forward. McCarthy, I'm bullish on. Before I was out on a limb at the beginning. Now,
they caught up to you.
It's pretty close to the consensus take. The herd has made it that way now, but that's just what it is. Yeah, I mean, like for the guy out there, I'll add some other ones for you. I effed up real bad on Hakeem Butler. That was my worst one with receivers. I learned my lesson though, because Johnny Wilson in this class is just about the dang same, and I think I got him wide receiver 19. but Butler coming out, it was Johnny Wilson spitting image for him. Mistake early on in my career at NBC. Keep in mind as well, I've only been doing this for 5 or 6, 7 years, something like that. I'll put my, go to a Reeves thing and look at that.
Exactly.
That, so that's that.
Okay. Gotcha.
Thor, going back to your big board, I've definitely dove into it yesterday and this morning. One of the things that I noticed is Trey Benson is your RB1 at number 72. Over the past, since 2015, there has been at least one running back selected in the top 40. Do you think that trend changes this year?
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
This running back class is down. I do think, you have, if you need a running back, you have discretion, you wait. There's some interesting mix and match. Like now we've gone to an era of football with the running backs where it's like the mix and match and the usage specific. If you wait, there's some interesting dudes later on that can do some stuff. There's some interesting sleepers. But as far as at the top, it doesn't compare very favorably to some of these classes going back. like the first one off the board, I think it's either going to be late second or it's going to be early third. For me, I have Benson at the top of the third round, along with Jalen Wright are my two favorite. I have Brooks very close to after that as well. I think I have all three of those guys in the top of the third round from my memory. But it's just at the top, it's just not quite as good. But yeah, I mean, there are some interesting guys later on, but the receivers is a good class in this one for the skill guys.
So will you be utterly...
God agrees with me.
Yeah, that's one of my two Basset Hounds. Will you be utterly flabbergasted then if we see, I guess, the trend or a Jahmyr Gibbs style pick where we're like, what? With the running back selecting round one? Or will you just nod your head and be like, yeah, this is what they do?
If GM took a running back in the first round, in 6 days, he'll be fired on the spot. The owner will literally be. Remember when Lane Kiffin got fired on the tarmac when he was at USC, and it was like, you're not getting on the airplane. It would be like that, but the first time of that in the war room, none of these guys, like the surprise that at least would be like quasi plausible, like would be like top 50. Like if it was around the middle of the second, like I think that's where. Maybe you see a Trey Benson or a Jalen Wright or a Jonathan Brooks, but not in the first round. That will not happen.
At 108, let's talk Vikings here. Let's say that they're frisky and they want a running back too. What's your ideal running back pick for that one, or the pick after that for Minnesota?
Which pick now? Where are we at?
Well, if we're at 108, let's say the Vikings don't go defensive tackle and say, you know what, we only got Aaron Jones for a year. What running back do you like for the Vikings in the draft?
So in both these guys, I think you can get at discounts as well, which is the thing that I would be looking at vis-a-vis the Vikings. Tyrone Tracy Jr., I think, fits this for a couple different reasons. You can get him. Is that my microphone? What is that me?
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
Is it?
Fixing stuff on the fly.
There we go.
There we go. Yep.
Oh, that wasn't me, right?
Oh,
no, it was.
Now.
I don't hear anything. I never heard anything. I don't know.
All right.
Is it me?
Let's just keep rolling.
Yeah, just keep going.
Okay.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah. It's Tyrone Tracy Jr. It would be the first one I toss. He's going to be available at a discount. He's only played running back for 2 years. This is coming after several years where he was a receiver at Iowa. That didn't totally work out in part because Iowa has an anemic passing offense and they didn't develop him correctly. Then he goes to Purdue, switches to running back. This past year, he blew up on a horrific Purdue team that was going nowhere, had a new coaching staff, couldn't throw the ball downfield, had a terrible offensive line, and was facing tough defenses every week. And Tyrone Tracy, the tape really opened my eyes. The stats were dumb. That was when, like, And I was a guy that had exposure to Tyrone Tracy. I'm an Iowa grad. I watch all their games live. So I had seen the statistical profile, but while I watched all of Iowa live, I wasn't going to subject myself to the Purdue Boilermakers last year. So even though I've seen the stats and like that, and then the advanced stats and stuff, it's like, well, maybe it's a fluke. Like I didn't have any sort of illusions heading into his tape. Really opened my eyes when I watched his cut-ups. But just first speaking to the stats on eye-popping stats, his elusive rating, and just for people out there that aren't aware of like elusive rating, 100 for elusive rating is like solid, right? So like anything above that is where it starts to get into like, above average and then really, really good.
Okay.
163.5 elusive rating for Tyrone Tracy Jr. last year. And then 4.44 yards after contact per attempt. Both of those numbers were the highest of any of my top 30 ranked running backs in this draft class. This was on, again, a terrible team last year, behind a terrible offensive line in a legit conference, playing really good defensive lines every single week. And for a guy that was new to the position as well, it's contextually very, very impressive. He's a great athlete in a threshold size, 5'11", 209, 97th and close to 98th percentile athlete, 4'4", 40. The explosive runs were there last year, and he has a unique ability to generate them. Here's what I got in my scouting report. Bouncy, juiced up, wide base slasher with better vision and instincts than I expected, runs with tempo, and has a knack for timing cutbacks to free himself into open grass. And when he does that, he's got the 4.48 jets.
Okay.
So it's like, he's able, first of all, to get into the second level. He has the acceleration. And in the second level, he has this Frogger thing where like two guys will be there, or else they're just sensing the cutback lane. But like people will think they have him dead to rights. And he has this violent cut where then all of a sudden they see open grass. Like I saw this with him at Iowa too, where I have a tweet out there where from when his last year at Iowa, where they're playing Northwestern and he was surrounded by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Northwestern defenders, like literally surrounded, and he scores a touchdown. People need to look at this picture. He gets out of these different things because he has that thing of like, now you see me, now you don't, with the agility where he can just go the other way, just super duper quick. And then now we're going north south and you can't catch me. So bye-bye. And so you saw that last year at Purdue. That is how he was doing this. And he's got enough muscle where he can break the arm tackles. So like I said, better instincts and feel than I was expecting behind the line, with the feel for the tempo of the thing. Because sometimes with those new running backs, it's like, they're either rushing too much, like, you know what I mean? Like pushing the pace of it too much. Right. You have to wait for the flow of it difference. He had a good feel for that. And then when he gets through the hole, that's where that thing comes up, where it's like he just has that good sense for either the evasion thing or hitting that cutback lane. And then when he finds that north-south crease to the daylight, that's where you got some issues.
Okay. Frogger.
And by the way, one last thing I'd say, the new kickoff rules in the NFL, sneakily, I think people need to be looking at Tyrone Tracy Jr. as someone who's going to be very good at that. Purdue tried him on kick returns last year. For some reason, Iowa didn't. Purdue last year, though, he was awesome on the returns and ran one back to the house. I think his game, though, in particular for the new kickoff rules in the NFL, you think about like the zone running aspect of that. When you think about that, like how they do the blocking schemes for that new kickoff thing, I think he projects really well to the new kickoff rules. Yeah. So something else to think about.
All right. Brevin, you're up. What do you got for Thor Nystrom?
Yeah, so coincidentally, I actually have the top 500 board right here on
there you go.
FantasyPros.com that everybody watching should definitely go check out. It's actually a really good way to keep up like with the draft, like if you're watching it and kind of be immersed into it. I did it last year, so shout out to Thor for that.
Oh, thanks, man. Appreciate that.
Yeah. So, and luckily we're coming to the end of having to do all this, but looking at the board, I think everybody in this fan base has kind of been like, oh, Drake May, that's the holy grail. McCarthy's the fallback. On your 500, and you've been vocal about McCarthy over May. How would you kind of sell that to a person that hasn't really heard you talk about it before, taking McCarthy instead of May?
Like if like just why do I prefer McCarthy? Or
Yeah, right. Yeah, pretty much.
Well, I first of all, the weeds, there are more weeds in May's game. Number one, McCarthy is ready to play right away. Number two, I think that there is less risk with McCarthy. I think there's a way higher bust potential with Drake May as well. That sort of stuff. With Drake May, the things that concern me, I don't understand why people don't talk about this. Drake May had a 10-game stretch in his college career where he was scorching. It was in the most statistically advantageous system that you can play in, the Phil Longo system. Phil Longo is the guy that bazooka numbers for Matt Corral and for Sam Howell. Before that, it is not translatable to the NFL whatsoever. It's the spread thing where you count the numbers before the snap. And then when you have the advantageous downtown look with the guy who's going deep, that's what you do, the one-on-one. That's what you throw it to him downtown. Drake May obviously has a good arm downtown. That's where it acquitted itself particularly well there, but the decision was made for him in advance. Or else when the numbers are the other way, that's where you can get the advantageous look with the pre-delineated read, intermediate, or whatever, or the short one, whatever it may be with that design concept. A 10-game stretch against, are we allowed to swear on this?
Yeah.
Or no?
Sure.
A fucking dog shit stretch of the ACC schedule. Go back and look at the 2022 ACC. You need to keep in mind the context of when he was shredding it. It was in a Phil Longo system with Josh Downs, et cetera, et cetera. People only want to give him the benefit of the doubt's context on the other side of it, where his situation was more equivalent to the average guy. Right? Like he statistically regressed across the board and these other things cropped up and people are like, oh, but look back to the previous season. It's like, no, I do remember the previous season when he was ripping up all those dog shit defenses and the gimmicky offense. I saw that. But did you see the last few games of that season? I remember them. The first 10 games, of course, in 2022 against the shitty defenses, he was great. The 11th one, though, mid-November, they played this horrible Georgia Tech team that happened to have a good edge rusher, a guy named Keon White. You guys remember him?
Oh, yeah.
Keon White had 3 sacks in that game. Georgia Tech had 6. UNC got upset at home by a dog shit team. So that ended UNC's undefeated run, et cetera, et cetera. So that was and Drake May was horrible in that game. It wasn't just being under duress. Go and take a look at his stats in that game. Georgia Tech roared back despite the fact that they weren't able really to advance the ball. They won a close game because UNC couldn't score in that game. The next week then, now it's time for UNC to pick up the pieces. They host another team, their arch rival, NC State. NC State decides to go the exact opposite way, and as opposed to the pass rush, they decide to drop 8 guys into coverage. Drake May played that game like he had landed on fucking Mars, and like the field, he read the field like it was covered in Sanskrit. Like you just so confused. He was, and like in general, it was like his mind was bogged down. But then he was even by the end of it so bad. So he was missing open guys in the back of the end zone, even when it was available to him. He did not have a backup plan for it. Was extremely confused. I'll just speed through the end of this spiel. They lose 4 straight games at the end of the season. He was not good. And then you go into this year, and sure, they lost Josh Downs and Phil Longo went elsewhere. And I've even said their offensive coordinator, I don't have a ton of respect for that guy's acumen. I said that before, going back, like the guy's kind of dopey. But at least under that guy, Drake May got to do stuff that was more equivalent to NFL stuff. For instance, you guys seen his stuff about throwing over the middle. At least he was afforded the opportunity to do, that sort of stuff, which he's good at, right? Like he's got the heat ring stuff over the middle. I like the arm, different stuff like that. But you can't explain the other stuff away without giving the proper context for the stuff before it. JJ McCarthy started more games than Drake May did in college against far better competition and was better in bigger spots. Like, I don't know what people are. You want to talk about counting stats? Give the effing context that they occurred in. And maybe we should talk about the guy that won the national title as a 20-year-old in an NFL style system for a sitting NFL head coach that believes he's the best player in the draft. Or we could talk about the guy that had 10 good games in the most statistically advantageous candy ass system in college football, the Phil Longo thing, not translatable to the NFL, against the dog shit 2022 ACC. Like, what are we doing here?
Right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, the thing with Drake May, again, the pocket, there's parts of his game that I like. We talked about this before. Like, the frame really good. I like it. Gets the ball, the back pedal, like, is cool. Keeps the full field. Likes to be in shotgun with the field spread. I like the way he manipulates spacing right away and senses pressure right away. The thing that there's a couple the things that concern me are the way that his brain starts to speed up a whole bunch when he is under duress, like right when it starts to come. But like before he would need to speed up the mental processing and to skew the mechanics, like when he starts to denote like, oh, Drake, you got to make a decision. I just see the you know, like getting it out then, but like before he's about to get smoked, you know, but it's like, you know, he'll leave behind the lower half and just try to get the ball, make a very quick decision. The first time that he denotes like, oh, the pocket's collapsed, you're like, oh, I got to do something, whatever. And you see him glitch a couple of times a game, even outside of that. Like the thing that I always remember, he's scrambling around one time against Clemson. Wasn't even a defender around him. He just sort of scrambling around, gets outside to the right, is around the goal line. He just throws the ball into the chest plate of a linebacker that was just standing in front of the goal line. Like there wasn't even one of his receivers. You don't see that stuff with J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy, after the Bowling Green game last year, which is, I think, the second game of the season, so the last 13 games of the season, which included all the murderer's row of the Ohio State defense, the Penn State defense, the Iowa defense, the Alabama defense, some of the best defenses that we had in the nation in that run to the college football title game. He had one interception, J.J. McCarthy. He wasn't making mistakes whatsoever. Drake May, you see a couple per game with that, where it's, what were you doing there? So that's the stuff that we need to work on. Drake May can't play right away. You have to pull those weeds out of his game. If you do, the stuff in the pocket with that howitzer arm, and there's some athletic traits there as well that are decent. He's a super tough kid. He'll give you the short yardage rushing utility around the goal line. Will muscle the ball in, but he is not the perfect prospect that some people want to, or the no doubt guy that some people want him to be. That I just don't see him properly discussed, or that any context whatsoever discussed with Drake May. People just want to believe that he was the thing that he was heading into the 2023 season, and they don't want to discuss anything that occurred either at the end of the 2022 season or the entirety of the 2023 season outside of explaining it away. I don't know. They also don't want to talk about the 2023 season when it has to do with the guy that won the national title. So who am I? You know?
I think fair. I think the in terms of your recommendation is widespread. The Vikings, in terms of your preference, they end up with J.J. McCarthy while not sacrificing next year's first rounder. That's the utopian scenario. But let me ask you, Thor, this is the last question I think we have for you for the draft. As a Viking fan and a draft analyst, what do you think is going to happen for the Vikings in round one? Your formal prediction.
Man. I know what they want to do. We all know what they want to do. They are working the phones actively to attempt to move up. Mm-hmm. The issue so far has been the asking price on the one hand of the teams that they are engaging with, in conjunction with, we all know that Tracy is the analytical guy. He's not the YOLO, let's go balls to the wall. Like some of the fans out there are like, oh, if it's your guy, you got to give up what, blah, blah, blah. Tracy ain't going to do that. It's got to be within the price point. The ask so far from the teams that they have been engaging, it's been too high. Will that come down? Those teams are, it's funny. The Patriots publicly, was it a day or two ago, that
open for business.
Elliot Wolf.
Yeah, Elliot Wolf.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty interesting because prior to this, they've been they've been asking for too much, but you guys know sometimes I put on the tinfoil hat and I become conspiracy Thor. And I had this tweet back in March that unearthed something. Maybe it's something, maybe it's nothing. But the hold on, I gotta pull this thing up. I want to do that. I want to do the correct on the way.
It's a really good tweet. I remember it.
I want to give the correct context for this. So in the day was, so this is from Twitter. The day was it was in March. Cameron Williams, the college scouting director of the Patriots, had only liked one singular tweet on one in the year of 2024. Since the calendar turned to 2024, he had liked one tweet. And that tweet had to do with what it said was, it speculated that the Vikings were going to send a quote unquote Godfather offer for the second or third pick. The only tweet that this Patriots college scouting director had liked it. And of course, New England owns the number 3 pick. And Robert Kraft, I found his comments interesting at the owners' meetings where he's like, if I was a fan, I would think the same thing that we hear, stick and pick the quarterback. Of course, that's the obvious thing. But, in our building, if you get an offer good enough, of course, you're going to have to get. It seems like that has been the way that the Patriots have been trying to tilt this thing the entire way along. And then Elliot Wolf comes out and he brings out his megaphone and he's like, guys, I'm open for business. It seems as though, well, it doesn't seem so. They've been asking for too much so far and they want Tracy to meet that price. I think there has been reticence so far. The equation comes down to, will there be any give on the one side? And will they come down a bit? Will Tracy come up a bit? I don't think one side going to come all the way down or go all the way up to the other, but can we meet in the middle at all? I think if the Patriots, I think they are more open to that. But again, they want this. They'd be way open to it if the Vikings blow their socks off. But that's the thing that Tracy is not going to do. So we'll have to see on that. And then, with the Cardinals and the Chargers, obviously, they would become the fallback option. But it just becomes about the prerogative with some of these other teams. So it's extremely difficult for me to, in advance, say, with all that. But I do believe that the Vikings will end up consummating a trade up to get one of the top 4 quarterbacks. It's extremely difficult to tell to which slot and for which quarterback, because it has to do with all kinds of other outside context. But I do believe that they will get their trade up and get one of those top 4 quarterbacks.
Okay. So basically May, McCarthy, or Daniels, depending on how the board falls.
I would say May or McCarthy. Those are,
okay.
and we talked about, those are the 2 guys that are the best fits for what KOC does, right? Like Daniel's great prospect for sure. You have that dual threat thing, awesome scrambler, awesome throwing downtown. The concern for the KOC offense does not pepper that ball over the middle really at all. And an elevated age for Daniels, we've seen him starting for 5 years, but like the things with his skill set that are leveraged, it's a spacing thing against the defense of, we're going to get you back and force you to play 2 deep safeties because he's so good at throwing down the field. Like I comp him to Randall Cunningham.
Yeah.
The awesome deep ball. And then he's going to enter the NFL and become immediately one of the 5-6 most dangerous scramblers that we've ever seen, because his north-south with that getting out of the pocket when he doesn't see it, he's fabulous with that. But that's what he does. KOC, his philosophy, it's the opposite. Like Daniels, the spacing problem he presents to the opposing defensive coordinator, it's, you must keep the 2 dudes back. Ergo, you can't keep a spy on me, right? Like, and so that's when it becomes the problem. And also, it's difficult for you to double team Neighbors or Thomas, whatever, because you have to keep 2 guys back, and you can't keep a spy on me. So pick your poison, and we're gonna have fun and create explosive plays. But KOC's thing is, we attack the middle of the field to force you to defend it. It's sort of difficult for you to always keep dudes back. That is how we create advantageous one-on-one shots, context specific, of course, but to not put the ball up for grabs. Like, right? Like that's how they create advantageous looks is by forcing the defense to do that. So that's a central tenet of that offense. Pepper that middle of the field, force you to defend it. Now we can attack the sideline and the down the field because you have to defend the middle of the field. It's Jaden Daniels is the inverse of that. Just from a baseline level doesn't necessarily mean that they would not take them and try to work with that and fit them in. But that's exactly what it would be. They would need to both amend that. He would need to work on his game. KOC would need to amend his system. So people just need to keep that in mind. The two tailor-made fits for it. McCarthy would be the one that can come in, play right away. He played in a 12 personnel offense last year, of course, for the NFL head coach like we were going for before, won the national title. Drake May would be the guy. I think you need to sit him initially, like I said, just to pull those weeds out. I know I crapped on him a little bit before, but big league arm. Drake May does have that big league arm, and he has that playmaking flair. It's just there are those weeds that I think people don't acknowledge, which is why I sometimes I have to go hard because the narrative out there I just think is wrong with him. Okay. But needs to be on the bench initially and probably go into the right situation. I would be concerned if I was Drake May or if I'm a Drake May truther, if he ends up in New England. And especially if they try to play him early, I think that has disastrous effects for Drake May the rest, like his career. The
line's not good
for the Vikings. Obviously, a perfect situation. And if they bring him along slowly, let Darnold start at the beginning of the year. You start to work on Drake May of having that backup plan. When you start to denote that the pressure is in your kitchen, having a backup plan, like that's what I see with him on his film. It's like he was never taught or he doesn't know like what to do in that situation. So it's like, what do I do? And it's just, but like KOC, I feel like let's get him in the film room. Let's have some late nights, kid. Like, let's bring in a bowl of popcorn. Let's watch them. Like, let's talk about a backup plan. Like in this situation, like get real granular specific. In this situation, this is what I want you to keep in mind, right? Like either, let's try to get outside to throw that thing away, or you have a dump off guy right here. You don't need to try to, I need to throw that down to a guy in the second sector of the field where there's traffic around there, yada, yada. So just different stuff like that. Okay. The Vikings would be a good situation for him.
All right, Thor. I don't know if our schedules will align again before the draft. And if they do not, we will certainly speak to you after the draft. It's been awesome. We got your prediction that there indeed, we think, will be a trade up the board. We came back down to earth on Drake May, remained high on JJ McCarthy. We appreciate it, sir. And we will see you probably in maybe a week or two.
Always good talking to you guys, and you bet.
All right. Take it easy, gentlemen. Later.
See you guys.